everyone, I'm Katie Teitler, Senior Analyst at Tag Cyber, and today I'm here with Priel, the VP of Product at Israel-based Ermetic. Welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about Ermetic and your company's platform. And in a previous interview that those of you watching can find on our website, Ermetic's co-founder and chief business officer talked with Ed Amoroso about the company and trends. But today, you and I are going to dig in a little deeper into the tech. But first, before we get into the product, the platform, let's start with a little bit about you. You have an impressive background, which everybody can read on LinkedIn, so I don't want to take time here, but please tell everybody what drove you to Ermetic and what continues to excite you about the market space that you're working on.
So once again, thank you for the time. So what really drove me to Ermetic was really the technology itself. When I talked with the founding team, it was very, very interesting to me that at that point in time, nobody was really addressing this challenge of actually managing identities and understanding all the entitlements that are present within the public cloud. And it just seemed like a very, very obvious problem to me that needed to go and be solved. And what they told me that their plan was at that point, because when I joined, there was still no product even, just resonated really, really well with me. And it's something that I felt right away that I really wanted to be a part of. In addition to the fact that I think the team itself is an amazing team, and I really wanted to be part of that team.
A good team can make all the difference in your work life. Absolutely, I agree. Identity, so that is the focus of Ermetic. But when you say identity, what exactly do you mean? Identity has changed in definition a little bit over the past 5, 10, 15 plus years.
That's a good point. So when we talk about identity, we're talking about all the different, well, I'm going to call it entities, to put another term on it, all the different entities that can actually access your cloud infrastructure, really. So whether it be actual humans like developers or DevOps engineers, SecOps engineers that are accessing your environment to make changes, to develop new applications or whatever they have to do for their workspace, to actual machine identities. So your different EC2 instances, your VMs that need some kind of entity to actually interact with the rest of the infrastructure. So that's really what we're talking about here when we talk about identity.
Great, thank you. Yeah, entity identity is very hard to say, so we can stick with just identity, but what you really mean is entity identity, because it's users, it's devices, it's machines, it's processes, so it's everything, not just when we think of identity. Obviously, human is the first thing that most people think of, but it's much more than that. That's definitely catching on in the industry, but there's still a little confusion. So thanks for clearing that up. Now the next part, let's dig into the platform itself. Tell us a little bit about it. What is the problem the platform solves, and what's different about it compared to other cloud security or identity-based security providers' platforms?
So the problem that we're really trying to address is really understanding who your identities are. Like, first off, getting a mapping of all the different identities that you have in your environment, whether it be your AWS environment, your Azure environment, your GCP environment. It doesn't really matter to us, but we want to really get a hold, first off, who are those entities? What are the machine entities that you have in there? What are the user entities? So that's the first real step there. The second step is actually understanding what can they do. What are their entitlements, really? So what permissions do they have to your environment? Can they destroy all of a sudden all your VMs? And we've seen these happen in breaches in the past, but really understanding what can or can't they do within that environment. Can they move between different accounts? Can they move between different clouds? Are these identities that are really part of that cloud? We're seeing more and more as an example of identities actually being federated identities. So identities coming in from an identity solution provider into these environments, so they're not even managed within the same platform. So it's really getting an understanding of all of that. And at that point, really getting to a point where we can start understanding what permissions or what privileges or really the entitlements that are really needed to produce whatever that the company's goal is really. So getting everything locked down, getting everything well, really to that least privileged state. And I'm throwing in a little bit of a term here, but I think it's really the goal. Now, regarding how we're different, I want to say we were really born to solve this problem. So one is the fact that we want to give you a good view, regardless of what platforms you're using, if it's Azure or AWS or GCP. So basically combining everything into one singular view and being very native to those platforms. So we're really born into the cloud, as they would say. And then we really came to address this problem. We didn't come to just give you a little bit of visibility into the identities like some of the other markets do, like the CSPM market, the Cloud Security Posture Management would be a good example, where they talk about this, but they talk about it at a very, very high level. They want to understand what services you might be using, but they don't know exactly how you're using those services or what specific permissions you have within those services. So there's a big difference there in the depth that we can actually go into versus a lot of the other markets under that cloud security umbrella.
So you talk about the different environments, the three major cloud providers, obviously. That's a really important point. I want to go back to that because we know that enterprises, especially the bigger enterprises, the ones who've been around a while, have some legacy environments and cloud. Most companies have some. We're moving more rapidly to the cloud. There are some newer or smaller companies that are all cloud-based, but most companies still have some on-prem. And they might be using multi-cloud environments as well. So they might be using Azure and AWS and GCP or some combination thereof. Can they get a unified view? Does that work ubiquitously? Does Ermetic work ubiquitously across clouds? Because they don't necessarily all look the same when you look into each individual one.
So I think that's absolutely true. Each one of them manages identities differently. Each one does entitlements differently. So you're absolutely right. One of the things that we sought to actually solve was the multi-cloud scenario, because we understand that more and more people want to go to that multi-cloud approach. They might have what they call their main cloud, like they might use one of the clouds more predominantly than the other one, but they usually have some presence in other clouds as well. So absolutely, one of the goals that we set was actually giving you a aggregated view of everything that you have within all the public cloud environments. Regarding the on-prem, you're absolutely right. This is where we moved from. So a lot of organizations are still with some kind of on-prem presence, and they are moving to the cloud, or they're slowly moving to the cloud. It doesn't really matter. But the goal is really to think and actually give them the view across everything, and really try to solve, again, their identity entitlement management problem as best as we can.
Okay, I would think that's an attractive selling point to a lot of people, is pulling it from these disparate environments into one place. We're seeing that with more platforms, obviously, but it is an important feature to have as an end user. So let's go one step further. How is it deployed? How hard? How easy? What network changes? What do people have to do once they say, yep, we're going with Ermetic?
So I always joke internally and say that I want it to be easy enough for my parents to have absolutely no tech background to go and be able to use this and be able to deploy it. So I think we've managed to do it here. The deployment, again, is a SaaS offering, so there's no installation or anything that needs to be done by the customer whatsoever. Really, there's a little bit of setup, and there's a very convenient and easy wizard that'll walk you through it once you get access to the platform. I think the for even a most novice user, like my parents, again, I'll say, it'll probably take 2-3 minutes to get it all up and running. So very, very quickly, very easy. The management itself, even for people that don't fully understand how, let's say, AWS IAM works, it is easy. We simplified it. We've made it in plain English. We're trying to refrain from using all the different terminology that makes you have to know that specific environment inside out. Because as we said, a lot of people are moving from on-prem using Active Directory all of a sudden to AWS IAM to manage. And again, terminology is a big thing between these two systems. The same thing is called differently between both of them. So the goal is really to make it very, very simple, so anybody could use regardless of really the background that they have.
Now, when you say simple, it means one thing. There are a lot of companies out there to whom simple wouldn't be so simple. We all have different expertise and levels of understanding. Does a company need a cloud architect, or do they need a senior engineer to be able to deploy this?
Absolutely not. But like I said, anybody can go and deploy this. Again, the deployment is a quick little wizard that guides you through it, that literally tells you what you have to do, both in our system and in the system that we're integrating against, again, be it any one of the big cloud providers. So really, really, really easy, no real prereqs or anything like that that we ask of the person, or even of the environment itself. So it's very, very easy.
So it sounds like a small, medium, or large enterprise could realistically use Ermetic without any trouble, even if they don't have a full security team or a full ops team.
Absolutely. I think it'll actually simplify their life even more, because it'll give them a lot of power that they did not have before. Again, that level of visibility that you get by using Ermetic, and I'm not even talking about the end solution or the end state that we're trying to get to, something that large companies and small companies alike have a huge problem getting to.
Absolutely. So how long does it take for customers to start seeing their data after it's deployed?
Minutes. It really depends on the size of the environment, I would say, but in most cases, within minutes, you will start getting a lot of data, probably even more than you can handle initially. But it's organized and it's set up in a way that makes it, again, very human readable, very understandable, without really needing to know all the background around the environment itself.
Okay. You've given us some really good information on Ermetic. So one last question for everybody watching and listening. What are some of the use cases your customers address with Ermetic? What have they discovered in their cloud that they didn't already know? What kind of data has it provided that they were like, oh, wow, okay, here's something I didn't know and something I have to act on, or something I didn't know that was really good that we were doing inadvertently, perhaps?
So there's a lot. We've had interesting cases and a lot of, I'll call them aha moments from customers where they were really surprised. I think the one that is always the most fun for me is what we call a third-party access. With a lot of companies, all of a sudden, when we come and install the product and we start showing them around and kind of giving them little points and tips on what to look for, we usually try to focus on third-party access. Third-party access is usually another company or another entity that has access into your environment. So it's really interesting to see. We had a customer where we went and deployed the product, and a few days later we get a call asking us, "Can you help us? We have something here that we don't understand." And we look at it, and they had a third-party vendor still have full administrative access to their environment, even though they stopped the contract with that vendor. So they were not even using their tool anymore, but yet they still had full access. They could do whatever they wanted. So that's always an interesting use case. There's a lot of other ones, like a lot of companies, for auditing purposes, as an example, would want to know who has access to my sensitive data, so like my crown jewel. So that's something that's very easy for us to show, very easy for us to actually give visibility into. So those are just some of the interesting use cases. But as I said, there's a lot of them, and I would encourage everybody to really come and try the product and see what they can find.
That sounds good. So if you're watching this right now and you have questions either about Ermetic or what they can do and how it can help you with your cloud visibility and identity control, definitely reach out. We've had the opportunity now for a few months to work with Ermetic, and we certainly love working with you guys. So, Or, thanks so much for taking all this time to speak with us. Thank you to everybody watching. Also, check out our video with Ed and Eric, and then we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Katie.